What's up, everybody? It's a new Celtics Beat. Great to be here with you. Thanks for joining us on your Cinco de Mayo. However you are celebrating, I hope you're working in a little bit of Celtics Beat. Hopefully, you worked in some Game 7 between the Cavaliers and Magic, which just goes to show exactly how much the NBA cared about this game and this series, putting that at 1 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon when there's no other game tonight in prime time, unless they were worried about competing with hockey or regular season baseball, and I don't think they were. So that series meant absolute dog crap, and that is pretty much the level of respect that a lot of Celtics fans are going to have for their next opponent, the Cleveland Cavaliers. First playoff matchup between these two teams since Jason Tatum's rookie year back in 2018. Feels like not that long ago that we were seeing the Cavs in the playoffs all the time during the rebuild, but this is going to be a fun one to preview. It is going to be a series that I don't know. I'm curious, obviously, what our panel, our group is going to have to say about it. We have Evan Valenti. I'm Adam Kaufman. Of course, Sean Deveney from Heavy.com. You know, I've in the past referred to him as Heavy's Sean Deveney, which does work. But I got to tell you, man, for people that are watching on the CLNS YouTube page versus listening to us in podcast form, you are looking svelte, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Adam. Thank you. I was just commenting on how great Evan looks as well. Everybody's looking good.
I like the little courtesy there. Yeah, everybody is looking good. Thank you. I'm the only other one here. Evan looks great.
Well, you know what?
Everybody looks good.
I'm terrible, so that's all I'm saying.
Well, I am a little bit concerned, if we're being perfectly honest. Again, video. If people are seeing, I'm wearing a Patriots sweatshirt and a Red Sox hat. If ever there was bad juju going into a next round of teams to be representing right now, while we're talking about a Celtics team that is chasing banner 18, I'm a little concerned about the wardrobe of choice. But look, I was just out in public at a kids soccer game and just trying to stay warm in the cold. But guys, last show that we did, for people out there that are wondering, like, man, it's been a little bit since you guys did a show, and it hasn't been any longer normal. It only feels like it because the Celtics haven't played since Wednesday when they eliminated the Miami Heat. And at that point in time, when we did a show, I think, Ev, it was where the Celtics, was it 1-1? Were the Celtics up 2-1? We were midway through that series.
Yep.
And we had Drew Carter on.
Yep.
And I said, look, I mean, the Celtics are still going to, maybe it'll go 6 if the Celtics have another game they don't take seriously, or Miami goes absolutely crazy historically shooting the basketball. But in all likelihood, C's are going to win this thing in 5. And sure enough, that's what they did. The Heat were completely overmatched. Celtics, took that kind of wake-up call of a game 2, I guess, and responded accordingly, including in South Beach, and finished that thing off with relative ease. And now you have a Cavaliers team, and we were lockstep about this. We both wanted Orlando, just to take away the Donovan Mitchell factor. We know what he's capable of. Went for 50 back in Game 6. Led his team in a massive comeback today to take Game 7. But ultimately, who cares? I mean, the Celtics, if they even without Kristaps Porzingis, who is not expected to play in this round, maybe that'll change. Hopefully, it will. They've thanks to the Orlando and Cleveland for stretching out their series a little bit and giving C's that much more rest and time and all of that. And Porzingis, maybe he can get back later in this round. We'll see about the severity of the injury that Giannis, with the Bucks out, never returned from. He missed about a month and season over. So we don't know. We don't know how badly Porzingis is hurting, other than the fact that everyone around the team seems to believe this is not a season-ending thing. And I think when you phrase it that way, or frame it that way, it means we expect him to come back in the conference finals, because yes, we are taking our second round opponent for granted. And that's exactly how I feel. And I don't want this whole show to just be like, haha, Cavs, who cares? But I do believe that this should not be a very compelling series, whether it was Orlando or Cleveland, and maybe Cleveland's a little bit tougher. But this is still, if the Celtics are who we think they are, this should be a series that they win in 5, maybe 6. We should not be talking about a 7th game between these two teams. Regular season meetings, Celtics had a couple of single-digit wins, and then a third game that they should have won. They were up 20-plus points in the 4th quarter and defecated all over themselves and lost that game. But Sean, let's start with you. We'll hear plenty from Evan. I will try and ramble a little bit less. what are your thoughts going into this series about the way Boston played in round one and what you expect from the Cavaliers?
Yeah, I thought if you're looking at the way that the Celtics handled round one, I thought it went absolutely perfect. Like if that was a sweep, then you'd probably be a little worried about this team, not having bled, being Ivan Drago a little bit, and then you finally see blood and you freak out a little bit. That's not the case. They got their clunker out of the way and handled it. Came back. Anybody who was worried about how they would respond, they responded just fine. They responded really the way that you'd like to see them respond. And then on the other side, you've got a team that now is dragging its way through a 7-game series. Not only lost 3 games on the road, but really was humiliated on the road. I mean, Cleveland, especially those first 2 games in Orlando, they lost by a combined, I think it was 61 points in those 2 games. This is a Cleveland team that when you take them out of Cleveland, they're really, really bad in the playoffs. And then in Cleveland, they're just so if you're the Celtics, that's a pretty good mix. It gives you a pretty good chance to at least win 1 game in Cleveland, and really you should be able to beat them twice on your home floor to open this thing up.
Yeah, and you have the Jared Allen factor.
Yeah, and Jared Allen with that rib injury, especially with Porzingis out, that's a benefit for the Celtics, no question. And we'll see how they react. With more time, are they going to stretch Al out a little bit? Is it time to have him go past 25 minutes more consistently? With Porzingis out, do they need to? Would they rather just kind of keep him in that box, or do you start stretching him out now? Now that we're getting closer to deeper into the playoffs, closer to when you might want to be able to use him more. That's going to be something to keep an eye on as well. So it's I think this is as good a matchup as you can get for the Celtics. It should be when you look at that offense, they should be very much able to handle the Cleveland offense, which really, really struggled in that opening round. And really, if you watch the first half of Game 7, you would think that this Cleveland team, how are they in the playoffs? They were so bad. So if you're the Celtics, I think you got to feel pretty good, certainly about where you are right now.
No question. And you look at that, they're in the regular season. I just want to bring it up here. It's not like the Cavs were some world beaters at home. 26-15 at home this year, 22-19 on the road. Boston, obviously, 37-4 at home, insane record. So, Boston shouldn't have any problems playing in Cleveland. The Dean Wade game aside, I think again, if that happens again in this series, I think Joe Mazzulla and the rest of the Celtics have a plan for Dean Wade. It's probably called put Drew Holiday on him, but we'll see. Yeah. In terms of the opponent here, it's for Boston, it matches up quite nicely for them. You look at what Cleveland does in terms of like guys getting downhill, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, those 2 guys. Well, look, I'm not trying to say the Magic aren't a good defensive team. They are a very good defensive team. That's actually one of the reasons why they were such a pain in the ass for a lot of teams towards the end of the season. Jonathan Isaac had a great defensive season. Jalen Suggs, just an absolute pest as a disruptive guard. But you're going to meet 2 different guys here with Derek White and Drew Holiday. They're going to be really, really difficult for this matchup. Like that's the thing to me. When you looked at playing Orlando versus playing Cleveland, the only thing that I really cared about was, I'd rather play Orlando because they don't have Donovan Mitchell, who is a proven playoff performer. The bubble playoffs where he just went bananas every single game. He's had a lot of big games already here in these playoffs. Like he's no question a tough guy to stop. And it's just gonna be about stopping the other guys. You're not gonna be able to live with Donovan only scoring 20, but everybody else pouring in. It's gonna be very similar to playing Miami, where you have Miami, couple of focal points, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero. It's those 2 guys. You try and limit that, but you can't let the Caleb Martins and the Haywood Highsmiths and the Jaime Jaquez's heat up. That's going to be it's not going to end well for you. So Boston, I think, getting the Miami Demons out of the way, as you said, getting cut once a little bit in that series on an otherworldly shooting night by Miami. I think this team is differently focused, right? It just feels a little different, Kaufman. I mean, you've been paying attention to some of the quotes that have come out, from post games and, during the week with this Boston team. Just feels a little bit more professional. They know that they need to get this done quickly to save everybody's legs. And you look at a Cleveland team, I just don't see, outside of Donovan Mitchell going for 60 or something, or some of the other players having a crazy night, I don't see it really being that difficult for Boston. Again, Kaufman, the only thing I'd be worried about is the inevitable Max Strus crazy game where he hits 7 to 9 from 3-point range.
Well, see, that's what I was just going to bring up. How many times in the last series did I refer on this show to the ghost of Max Strus when talking about, Miami Heat PTSD? And I was never really worried about that series because there was no Jimmy Butler. You put Jimmy Butler into that series, then sure, I'm going to have a level of concern that just never existed otherwise. But, Caleb Martin wasn't going to do what he did last year. He had the one game, but I just kept talking about the ghost of Max Strus and who was going to be that guy. Was it going to be Jaquez? Was it going to be Jovic? Was it going to be Duncan Robinson? Well, now we actually have Max Strus. He is, you talk about warding off the Miami Demons. Well, we're not done with that yet. We're still warding off Miami Demons because Strus is in this series. And I do feel like, and I'm not saying that Strus is going to win this series for the Cavs, but the reason I said Celtics in all likelihood take care of the Cavs in 5 or 6 is because I don't believe it'll be a sweep, because I do think there's going to be a Max Strus game. And I think at some point that's going to be enough, because he can't do it alone. Max Strus isn't going to drop 40 in a game and the Celtics still win it. There's going to be a crazy Max Strus game where he goes for 30 points and they win that game. I just fully expect it. I am fully believing that is going to happen. I would love to be wrong. It's not like he went nuclear in the first round against Orlando, but it's like he's saving himself for his former team that decided to keep, Javonte Green or whoever it was around ahead of him. So that is, my expectation. But, you bring up before, I don't remember if this was on the air or off the air at this point in time, but you were talking about just kind of how weird the mix of this roster is for the Cavaliers, and sort of, all right, on a game-to-game basis, what do you expect from somebody like a Harris LeVert or Darius Garland, and I think so much of it is the Jared Allen factor, and we don't know the severity, obviously, of his injury. If he plays, like Donovan is going to be Donovan, at least he should be. But outside of him, if Jared Allen slides in, it alters obviously the way they use Evan Mobley. And, he could be free ranging. He'll live out around the perimeter a little bit more, put up some threes. If he's unavailable, he is exclusively in the paint and doing nothing else. And that's, great. But when Allen's not there and you're looking for another potential scoring threat, and Mobley is a very inconsistent scoring threat, all of a sudden Garland does become, a guy who can go crazy. Like there was a game the other day, I think it was a game 5, game 6, one of those. I take the under on Darius Garland's 16.5 points. Dude dropped 17 in the opening quarter. So he is fully capable of having these stretches where it can be a 1-2 show with Donovan Mitchell. And so I don't want to make light. I didn't think a whole lot of Miami from a depth perspective. Cavaliers, depending on who's available, I'm willing to take more seriously in that way. The thing is with this team, and I am not nearly as high on this team as I was last year when they went down early against the Knicks. This team, the whole second half of the season, guys have just been in and out of the lineup and inconsistent rotations, and you just don't know from a game-to-game basis who is going to play. And I feel like we're kind of still there because of Allen. Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, what does it take in your mind, Sean, for Cleveland to actually give Boston a series?
Yeah, it's a good point. Cleveland actually reminds me a little bit of the Celtics a few years ago, and maybe even just like 2 or 3 years ago. Sometimes it still comes up now, where they get into where Garland and Mitchell can't both play well together. It's one or the other, and one's going to be ball dominant. Usually it's Donovan Mitchell. And then if Mitchell's not, then than Garland can. They don't know, even 2 years into this thing, they don't know how to play together. I mean, that's really, we watch this team. That's what you come out with, is that, these are two stars who, you understand why Cleveland made the trade to get Donovan Mitchell to begin with. They had a star, he was available, they could get him. Maybe you convince him to stay. Maybe everything works out. It hasn't quite worked out, and he's probably not going to stay. Everybody knows that on that team. I think that's a black cloud looming over that team as well. I think they're starting from that standpoint. But having said that, look, when they play with some pace, when they play with in transition a little bit, they can be dangerous. They do have young guys that run. They don't run enough, in my opinion. And really, if you watch the second half of Game 7, they're really at the end of the second quarter is when they started to get much more aggressive, and they started to let their offense really get out and get some early offense. They need to be able to do that. That's where they can be a little bit dangerous. But when they settle into playoff basketball and play just half court, which is what the bulk of this series is going to be, then they really, really struggle. They've got to be able to get out and run and get both of those guys involved. Like I said, 2 years in, they haven't figured out how to do that. But if they can unlock that a little bit in this series, they become a much more dangerous team.
Quick break from today's show to tell you today's show is powered by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like Meek Mill and Sugar Sean O'Malley? Well, now you can find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community every single week, and get on all the playoff action for basketball and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a whole new level during the postseason. You can now bet up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Turn $10 into 1,000 with basketball, with hockey, baseball, on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. And Prize Picks is now the official daily fantasy sponsor of CLNS. And thanks for a new partnership, our listeners get a pretty sweet new deal to sign up with Prize Picks. Just download the app, use the promo code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's promo code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 after you download the app. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Yeah, and the thing is, I like the way that Kaufman brought up the last time we saw the Cavs in the playoffs. They got absolutely punked by the Knicks and just weren't ready and weren't physical enough for that entire series. And I just go to that particular point in general, right? How do you try and keep the Cavs out of transition? Well, hit the offensive glass as much as possible. Obviously, make your shots is a big one of those. But crash the glass as much as humanly possible and try and out physical Cleveland. I mean, I know Boston doesn't have a Mitchell Robinson or Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, they don't have that guy down low to bang bodies, but neither does Cleveland, really. I mean, they're not a great regular season rebounding team. Boston was the second best rebounding team in the league this year versus Cleveland, which was more towards the middle of the pack. And without Jared Allen in there, it's just going to be really hard for Cleveland to try and control the glass and try and steal some possessions, right? Like, when you're a team like Cleveland and you're fighting an uphill battle against a team like Boston, who's just got way more talent than you, you're going to have to steal possessions. And I just, if Cleveland can't get out in transition and can't control the glass, then there's just not a lot of opportunities for that. The only opportunity would be is if you can force Boston into turning the ball over a ton. And I just don't know if Cleveland has the defensive horses for that kind of game. Like, I don't think Cleveland has, like if they had an Alex Caruso type of guy where he can maybe, pressure the guards a little bit for Boston and make them a little uncomfortable, right? The wing defense, Isaac Okoro is a decent wing defender, but outside of him, they don't have anybody that can really check Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. So, Mobley is going to be a huge part of this series. Sean, I don't know if he's ready for that. He's a younger guy. Yeah. He really hasn't lived up to his potential, at least as an offensive threat. Defensively, he can be kind of special, but he's going to have to make up for a ton of just not great defenders on the perimeter, right? Like, everything's going to be funneled towards him. And I think Boston can easily take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I just, if you're asking a guy his age who kind of came in, and he's got a weird career because Mobley came in and everybody was like, so he looked so good early on, and he's just sort of stayed there and maybe even dipped a little bit. He's never really exploded, I think, the way that you might have wanted. I think part of that is the fact that they went out and got Donovan Mitchell. I do think that stunted his growth offensively. That maybe there was some harm done there. We'll see how that works out. But yeah, Mobley's definitely, and I think Okoro could be an interesting. Okoro did a really good job against Franz Wagner in the Orlando series, and so if he can do that kind of, he's not a great offensive player, obviously, but he can do some damage on the defensive end. We'll see. Obviously, it's a much different. Wagner to Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum is a much different assignment. So that's going to be a real challenge. But I think he's an interesting guy to watch as well because he did have success defense. I think it was a plus 34 in Game 7 and was a real factor in the fact that Wagner went 1 for 15 from the field. That was in large part to Okoro. So I wonder if he's going to be able to have any kind of impact. And he got the starting nod when Allen went out. They went small with Okoro. I wonder how they handle that next time around. I think old friend Mook Morris got a start in there as well, but they quickly went away from that. I don't know why, but they did.
Even freaking Tristan Thompson getting minutes.
Yeah, Tristan. Who would have thought? Yeah, more Celtics ghosts.
Ghosts of Celtics past that we're going to be seeing in this one. So, look, I mentioned earlier that Kristaps Porzingis, in all likelihood, is not going to play in this series, at least based on the reporting that was out there most recently from Chris Haynes over at Turner. And the series begins on Tuesday. If you're wondering when any games are taking place, they start Tuesday in Boston. At that point in time, they are every other day until the series is over. So figure it out for yourself. But when it comes to Porzingis, I think it's sort of twofold. I think the three of us could probably agree that you do not need Kristaps Porzingis to win this series. You are a good enough team that, you really shouldn't have a problem independent of his availability. That's one half of it, though. The other half is just Kristaps Porzingis. How much does he make your life easier, or is he not as relevant in a matchup like this specifically? Because we know, Sean, he's not the kind of guy, I don't want to dismiss him. I thought he had a great regular season and he was really solid before he went down in the playoffs. But he's, in a matchup like this against a team like this, yes, he's a big guy, but he's not that big body that's going to, bang down low with Allen or Mobley and be muscling for rebounds and all. That's not his game, which is not a criticism. It's just not who he is. So by not having him available, I don't think you're losing a whole lot other than obviously another scoring option. It thins out your depth. You brought up the Horford point where, should they be stretching him out? My answer to that, by the way, is absolutely not. No, do not. I don't want Horford playing more than 25 minutes because I want him as fresh as possible, as long as possible, because we don't know if and when Porzingis is coming back. So go to Cornette and go to, Tillman and go to Kada, go to these other guys. I don't want to see Horford any more than we have to because I don't want him to fall apart the way he did at the end of the playoff run last year, where just age and fatigue got the best of him. So on the Porzingis point, how do you feel about sort of his importance to a series like this?
Yeah, and the thing that he does, of course, is he stretches out your defense, and Al can do that too, and so I don't think they'll necessarily lose that with having Al out there more, forcing either Mobley or Allen when he plays to come out to the perimeter and kind of juggle up your defense that way. But the thing that Porzingis does that he's done all season, and I think he's one of the top 2 or 3 players in the league at post-up points, is that when the Celtics 3-pointers aren't working, you'd like to see them attack the basket, but the other weapon that they can play is they can post up Porzingis, and he's still very, very effective at that, running those plays. So not having that against Cleveland, again, Is it really going to be a difference maker? Probably not. But that is a card that they've been able to play that really none of the big guys that they have besides Porzingis can do that. So that's something that'll at least be missing. But I would rather have that, against the Knicks, against the Nuggets, than worry about it against Cleveland.
Yeah, it's a size thing. Again, if Cleveland's not going to have Jared Allen, the more size you have, the better you're going to be. And the fact that Porzingis stretches you all the way up to 3-point range, it's going to make Mobley cover the whole floor. And Al Horford's going to do that too. So it's not really a huge deal. I wonder how they match Horford and Mobley minutes to maybe try and get – and Mobley's a young kid, so I don't think he's going to worry about tiring out. But, just to make him uncomfortable, make him guard the whole floor. And then after that, Boston – can take advantage of some of the size they have at the wing position specifically. I mean, Jason Tatum was unbelievable rebounding the basketball against Miami, and he was unbelievable. That's the biggest growth I think you've seen of him, both that and I guess the playmaking too. But I mean, he's just been a dominant rebounder all season long, and it seems like it's something that he takes a lot of pride in. So, as long as Boston controls the glass, whether they had Porzingis or not, and Porzingis is not a guy that hits the glass a ton. You know what I mean? For a guy at 7'3", that's really not his expertise. He can defend the rim a little bit as a rim protector, but he's not a huge rebounding guy. Tatum, I believe, just off the top of my head, led the team in rebounds this year, which wasn't shocking to me at all. And it's going to be more important with Porzingis out to just, take care of the rebounds, take care of the glass, as, whether it's Hauser or whether it's Cornette. I'm curious, Kaufman, if you think that it's going to be more Cornette or more Tillman in this series, because I could advocate for both of them, I think.
Yeah, I'm inclined to say Cornette just because he was a bigger part of the team throughout the season, but obviously Tillman was a late addition, so has had to kind of earn his minutes a little more slowly. Even still, we saw more Cornette in round one than we did Tillman, but that could flip, man. I mean, that's the thing with Joe, and sort of and there's an element of unpredictability there where he's going to go on feel with some of that stuff, and we can get Sean's thoughts on it also. But I'm really glad you brought up Tatum, because I think an interesting thing that we haven't gotten to yet, and we were talking about this, Ev, on our text thread relating to just that first round series and what was most impressive. And yes, Tatum on the glass for sure, but I feel like I wasn't as wowed by that. He averaged 10.5, and that's great, for a guy who's not a quote unquote big, but I wasn't as wowed by it because I do feel like historically, when the moments get bigger and you need Tatum to play more of a role on the glass, he does. Last year, like he in the playoffs, 20 games, he averaged 10.5 rebounds. So I feel like we've seen that version of Tatum already. What really jumps out is, really it's two things. And one of these you brought up and one our buddy Seth brought up. The one you brought up is the fact that in the first series, he only took 15 shots per game, which is down from his 20 average during the postseason last year. It was a lot more ball movement. It was a lot less forcing shots, off ball Tatum. And this kind of goes hand in hand if he has the ball in his hands less, obviously, but he only turned the ball over 1.8 times per in that first series, which is down from 2.8 last year, 4.2 the year before when he turned the ball over 1,000 times in the playoffs. He and Brown both on the way to losing in the finals to the Warriors when that was a true problem. But this 1.8 of all his playoff runs, he's been in the playoffs every year since he came into the league in 2017. The 1.8, granted, we're only talking about a 5-game sample right now, is the least that he has ever had on average in the playoffs. So, there's a maturity, a growth, a development there, obviously, in part, but also it just feels a little less frantic, Sean, a lot more in control.
Yeah, and I think that's maturity. I think there's a lot of growth there in terms of understanding that, I don't have to go out and force this shot and the next shot and the next shot that especially when you've got Derek White scoring the way that he can, and you have Porzingis, at least for the first part of that series. You had so many weapons out there that, he took sort of what Miami's defense was giving him and really helped pick them apart. And when you have the number of weapons that the Celtics have, you have that ability to do that. So I'm curious to see how Cleveland handles that. Will they throw extra bodies at Tatum? Will they treat him like he's the one we've got to stop? And if everybody else beats us, that's fine. That hasn't worked against the Celtics. If you leave Tatum single covered and just kind of stick with Isaac Okoro on him or whoever it's going to be, that's not going to work either. So he really does make you pick your poison. And I'm interested to see. I thought Miami, with the way they handled him, they were trying to get the ball out of his hands, and he said, okay, I've got guys who can handle that. We'll see how Cleveland handles that. I imagine they'll probably try something close to the same thing. But again, I think eventually that the Celtics will play well enough to where they force an adjustment back to trying to guard everybody else and pay attention to everybody else.
Yeah, the least amount of shots is huge, and that's a wonderful thing to have. I mean, if Tatum doesn't have to score the ball a ton for them to win games, that's huge. That's what you want. I mean, that's and I'm not trying to go apples to apples here because you can't. But the thing that makes Jokic so dangerous is he doesn't have to score points to have a huge impact on the basketball game, and that's the true, for me, that's the true tier of a superstar. Of, can you impact the game in a couple different ways without just scoring the ball? And Tatum's defense can allow him to do that, no question. His rebounding ability can allow him to do that. But the playmaking is the huge thing. And, you had the clip resurface of Andre Iguodala explaining, the Tatum rules to Tatum right in front of him. Hey, when you had this many dribbles, this is what we would do. And when they had this much time left in the clock, we would do this. They know all these things to confuse him. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Cleveland's going to be that complicated with it. I don't think they have Tatum rules. I think they're going to be a little easier to dissect. And again, give Tatum a lot of credit. There was a couple of different plays that come to mind, but my favorite one was when he was basically triple teamed with Jaquez on the weak side, and Tatum, instead of trying to play 1-on-3, was like, fine, if you're going to put three guys on me, I am very, very willing to just give it to Derek White or, have him swing the ball and attack, basically 5-on-3 the rest of the time, or 4-on-3 the rest of the time. That's the kind of stuff from Tatum. If you want to really look at his maturation and his growth, that's the biggest area. And if he's doing that kind of stuff, then it's going to be curtains for a lot of teams, Kaufman. It's going to be curtains for a lot of teams.
Without a doubt, I'm fascinated to see obviously how it plays out, and I just feel like I've said this on previous shows. I've been very consistent about this. I thought the Bucks were going to go down entering the series without Giannis, and then Dame's hurt. Please, no chance. And I felt the Sixers were going to go down. And looking ahead now, as I said last show, before those series ended, I feel like we were on a collision course for the Celtics and Knicks to meet in the conference finals for a chance to go to the NBA finals. And I just think that is going to be, if we get there, barring something funky happening along the way, a wildly compelling series for so many reasons, on and off the floor. On court, obviously we already know about the Celtics, but Jalen Brunson and what he has become, he is legit. This is, I offer him more respect than the whole playoff Jimmy Butler thing, because Brunson does it during the regular season too. He is morphed into that guy. And of course, just the Boston, New York thing, as far as, the fan bases and the, the Bing Bong history and all of that. This is great. I really hope that we get there, but without projecting ahead and just talking about what we do have in front of us here that we do know. We talk about this series. What about the other half there? Do you expect, Sean, the Knicks to not roll the Pacers? I don't want to disrespect Indiana. I do like that team, but ultimately, I just think the Knicks are strong enough, and I mean that in both ways. I mean in the the literal physicality and how they play, but also just the way that roster is built. And Tibbs is going to run those guys into the ground, so what the rotation is going to look like, obviously. But do you expect the Knicks to, maybe in a hard-fought, gritty series get that done, or do you think the Pacers have a chance to emerge there?
Yeah, if you're the Celtics, I think that you couldn't have picked a better opponent for the Knicks to have than the Pacers, because they're going to run them up and down, and they're going to do their best to wear them out. That team really likes to get up and down. And that's going to be a difficult matchup for the Knicks just because of the speed that Indiana is going to want to play. And the Pacers, obviously not having Giannis in there, that really the Bucks were doomed because of that. But I think that might have been a better series than a lot of people thought, even if Giannis had been healthy, just because of the style of play that the Bucks have, and then B, if you watch that series, I mean, Miles Turner, for instance, was terrific. And they got a lot of performances. If Miles Turner was going to play that way with Giannis on the floor, then that still was going to be a competitive series. So I think there's some guys out there that maybe aren't getting enough attention that are going to give the Knicks some trouble. Obviously, you've got Halliburton, you've got Siakam, but some of those role players with Indiana, they're pretty dangerous. And I think that you're probably looking at certainly a 6-game series here. If not, you can see this going 7.
We'll see. I don't know. The Knicks are going to be really physical, and I'm not quite sure if a lot of those Indiana guys are ready for it. I mean, Pascal Siakam has a ton of playoff experience, so that's going to help. I think he might be the sneaky X factor in that series. Turner, obviously, with his ability to stretch the floor, is going to be fun, but sometimes when they goes really small, like Siakam at the 5, they can be even more dangerous because how much they can spread you out. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
I do think we're on a collision course, much like Kaufman.
Yeah, they're one of those teams, though, I mean, that when they get hot from the 3-point line and especially corner threes, they love corner threes. If they're making corner threes, then it's like they're really hard to beat. So I could imagine them having at least 2 games where they're just making those shots, and we're looking at a 6-game series because the way they're shooting is there's not much you can do.
Quick break from today's show to tell you today's show is brought to you by Game Time. The NBA playoffs are here. I don't know about you guys. I am dying to get my hands on some tickets to any one of these playoff games for the Celtics. I would love to be inside TD Garden to experience the atmosphere. And with Game Time, it's never been easier or faster to get playoff tickets. And prices on Game Time app, they actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. And with last-minute killer deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can pick out any game you want. It doesn't matter. You find the game, they have tickets for you, okay? No question about it. And you can even customize your spot, look for some inspiration from Game Time. Let's say like, hey, I want to have this view, but that's what I'm really looking for. You can limit it. You can narrow your focus down to zone deals. You can buy flash deals, or you can view from your seat and lowest price guaranteed every single time. They have last minute deals. You can save to 60% off buying last minutes for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. It's not just NBA. I know we're an NBA podcast, but you can get, let's say, Sebastian Maniscalco's coming around. You want to see that guy in concert? He's hilarious. I look into it, and you can save even more when you choose a section like Game Time. Choose the seats for you with some sweet zone deals. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, the redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So on the other side, in the Western Conference, I think in many ways it is more interesting, less predictable, barring obviously, like in the East, things could get messed up with injuries, obviously. But as we know it right now, I feel like, we expect Boston, New York. In the West, though, man, like I did not handicap this one well. I thought the Thunder were going to win. I didn't think it was going to be nearly that easy, to sweep, youngest team in the playoffs, obviously, to dominate the way that they did. I mean, it's this team. We knew, like, all right, a couple years, like this is going to be a real threat to win a championship, but maybe they're there already. I mean, maybe they need to be respected on that level now, and they're going to have Luka, Kyrie, and the Mavericks on the other side, a team that really. I'm not surprised that they took care of the Clippers. Expected that to happen, but now I think we're going to get a series there. And the most interesting one is obviously Minnesota and Denver, with the defending champs facing a team that I thought Minnesota was going to lose to Phoenix going into the series. Long series, 7-game series, but I thought Durant and Booker and Beal, like they'd get the job done. Nope. Minnesota, a 4-game sweep, no problem. Anthony Edwards is, as the kids say today, guys, he is him. He is unreal. He has been unbelievable so far in the play. A 22-year-old kid straight out of the movie Hustle, just raking everybody over the coals, takes game 1 and owns it. And there are a lot of people that were going into this series that were expecting or betting on Minnesota to win, maybe because of the value in the number or just, looking at their regular season matchups and saying, all right, they split 2-2, these teams can play. I just sort of assumed that Jokic and the Nuggets, the defending champs, like they're on another level. They're the best team in the NBA. All due respect, Celtics fans. I think very highly of the Denver Nuggets. If they go down, and look, it's only 1-0. Who knows? But if they go down to Minnesota, that to me, in a very favorable way for the Boston Celtics, opens up the West dramatically. I'm curious, Sean and Evan both, how you guys see that conference impacting, if we're projecting way ahead, impacting, the Eastern entrant in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to play Denver if you're an Eastern Conference team, especially. Going into their building is it's different because of the altitude. It's not something that if you play in the East your whole career that you do that much. You do it once a year. And, so that's something that is sort of a built-in advantage for the Nuggets, not only it helps to have Jokic, of course, and then Jamal Murray and guys like that. But yeah, so whoever wins the East, I think you don't want to see Denver, obviously. A team like Oklahoma City, a team like Minnesota, coming in, I thought both of those teams would be at a severe disadvantage like you did because of the lack of playoff experience. I think both of those have pretty well thumbed their nose at it. And Oklahoma City's favored to beat Dallas, and I kind of agree with that. I kind of can see that. So yeah, if you're an Eastern Conference team, I think you're looking at this, and you definitely don't want Denver. But then you start looking at what the other options are. Do you want Anthony Edwards? That's not great either. And do you want Oklahoma City? With the young talent that they have and the wave of players they're able to throw at, really good players that they're able to throw at you. I'm not sure I want them either. So yeah, it's a much different ball of wax in the West, no question. I do think though that if it's not Denver, I think that if you're the Celtics or Knicks or whoever, I think you're probably happy to not have to go into Denver and play the Nuggets.
Yeah. And this Wolves team, though, they're really, really tough defensively, and they have a ton of size, everywhere. And, with Mike Conley there to kind of run the show when things get a little hectic is a huge, huge, huge value for Minnesota. And with Chris Finch, ailing, they can still be a really tough team. I love the way Ant's playing, but there's other guys too, like Naz. I'm a huge Naz Reid fan. He's a spectacular player. Having a weapon like that off the bench is unbelievable. McDaniels will be a tough assignment for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. He's a great defensive player, and there are nights when he can carry an offense for a couple of stretches here. That's not a fun matchup either. This West is really loaded. I mean, if the Mavs got to the finals and it's Kyrie and Luka against the Celtics, it'd be a kind of a fun storyline. You look at Oklahoma City, the young talent they have, it's a little early for them. I think that's the only team that I would feel super confident about playing would be Oklahoma City. As great as Shea has been, and Shea has been unbelievable, and I love J-Dub, is probably one of my favorite players in the league. There's too much. There's a lot of inexperience there. Going to the finals against Steph Curry, I think gave Boston a little bit of juice in terms of what to expect, when things go really well and what happens when they go really wrong, how they can snowball and all that stuff. So the Western Conference is so much fun. It's way more interesting than the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
I prefer I'll tell you this. I enjoy not sweating out games. I've really enjoyed that experience, you guys. Like, I've really liked this is over in 5. Don't worry about anything else. Because a lot of entertaining basketball outside of the Celtics, man.
I'd much rather be the Celtics in the East than the Nuggets in the West. You know what I mean? Like just the path to June is a lot easier for the Celtics than it's going to be for Denver. That's for sure.
Which is why, and we've talked about this before on the show. Like, I'm sorry to repeat ourselves, but like with Giannis out and Embiid out, even though he's a perennial playoff choker anyway, I wouldn't worry about him even if the Celtics were playing the Sixers. But all these stars, these studs in the Eastern Conference are already knocked out. Like, good. I don't need the whole, give me the easy path. I have no problem with the easy path. I am not too proud for the easy path.
Nobody cares last year. We said this last week. Like, nobody cares that Denver had an easy path to the finals last year. They won the title. That's all that matters.
Yeah, like, give me the parade. That's what I care about. I don't think Wick is sitting there, thinking about, man, in order to get another championship ring, I hope it's really tough. Like, no, I mean, come on, just get the job done. That's what we're looking for here. So I'm sure there are enough of our viewers, listeners sitting out there saying, all right, guys, like, we're spending the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes talking about the NBA finals. Like, we tipped the freaking second round series against the Cavaliers before we worried about, who Boston could play in the Western Conference. I get it, but big picture show, it's a little bit of what we do here. And I don't mind. Look, I'm going to tell you how I feel, and Evan will, and our guests always will. And everything I felt about the series against Miami came to fruition. And I'm hoping that is the case here against the Cavaliers as well. Let's just call it like it is. We're adults. There are no jinxes here. I'm not like tempting the sports gods, or I don't have that power. I am a fan, a consumer, just like you, hoping that we see a honestly not that entertaining series, that the Celtics, have a couple of blowout wins, couple other relatively comfortable wins, or maybe there's a sweaty one in there and Cleveland probably steals one, get the gentleman's sweep. All due respect to Max Strus, we ward off another demon of the Miami days, and we move on and we focus on, again, a rivalry series, even though it hasn't been a rivalry in a long time, with the New York Knicks. That is what I would love to see. I think it would be fun. And so that's where we're at right now. Again, series begins on Tuesday at the Garden, of course, and it alternates, as I mentioned before. And so games 1 and 2, Tuesday, Thursday, takes the end of the weekend, the trip to Cleveland, back for game 5 on Wednesday, a little less than a week away, May 15th. And if there is a game 7, and hopefully there isn't, it is 1 week from today. So guys, should be fun. I'm looking forward. And Sean, I don't even know the last time you were on this show. It has been long overdue, long time coming. Thrilled you were able to rejoin us. Let's do it again. Don't be a stranger.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Sean Deveney, again, of heavy.com. And I don't want to say no longer heavy, because he was never a big man. but it's heavy.com for Sean Deveney. And Ev, let's have ourselves a fun series, huh?
Hey, I want to quit. Let's get over with.
It's so many things I wanted to say right there, but I'm not going to. Evan Valenti, Adam Kaufman, on to the Celtics and Cavs. Again, game 1 Tuesday night.